Grateful that all of you are here for our April Leadership Learning. We're doing something really cool today. We've never done anything like this before at Awardco. So we're really excited that today's the day that we could try something like this. Just as part of our V2 Mom and our effort in 2024 to level up and improve all the talent that exists in this room and in this building in new and meaningful ways. We're thrilled today to have Liz Wiseman join us. There she is, waving hi, yeah. We'll give her a brief introduction, and she's joined by Andrew Webb, who you'll get to know as well. A little wave as well. When I came to greet them, Andrew was sitting in the massage chair. That's like the first place he went. So our building is just a really comfortable place, it seems. Wonderful, he says. Okay, well, let me kind of explain how today's going to work in the next few months. Today with the Wiseman Group, you're going to be introduced to some content today that's going to challenge the assumptions that you have as a leader. This is going to, by design, it's intended to change your thinking, like I said, change those assumptions, and introduce some new thinking and new behaviors that will allow you as a leader to elevate the performance of your team. And our goal would be for all of us to be able to rise together. So following today's message in June and in August this year, the Wiseman Group will be joining us again for half-day sessions similar to this, where we will have the opportunity to actually practice and dive deeper into what we're learning. You're also going to see, this is going to be mentioned as part of today's presentation, but starting today, there will be programs in Awardco for you as leaders to participate in to incentivize your learning and allow you to practice some of the things that we're going to be learning about today. Okay, so as always, an invitation, like you have your laptops and stuff, your ardent note takers, please don't worry about your Slacks, don't worry about your emails for the next little bit. This is for you. That's why we put this together. Let me go ahead and introduce our speaker, Liz Wiseman. Liz Wiseman is a researcher and executive advisor who teaches leadership to executives around the world. She is the author of New York Times bestselling, she is the author of New York Times bestseller Multipliers and Wall Street Journal bestsellers Rookie Smarts and Impact Players. Liz is the CEO of the Wiseman Group, a leadership research and development firm headquartered in Silicon Valley, California. Beautiful out there, we're all jealous. Some of her recent clients include, get ready for this, Apple, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Disney, Google, Lilly, Meta, Microsoft, Netflix, Nike, Salesforce, Tesla, and X. Quite the list. Liz writes for the Harvard Business Review, Fortune, and a variety of other business and leadership journals. She's a former executive at Oracle Corporation, where she worked as the vice president of Oracle University and as the global leader for human resource development. Liz holds a bachelor's degree in business management and a master's degree in organizational behavior, each from Brigham Young University. She is a frequent guest lecturer at BYU and Stanford University. Liz has received the Top Achievement Award for Leadership from Thinkers 50 and has consistently been named one of the world's top 50 management thinkers. We have been big fans of Liz as a people team. You've heard us often describe her as our career spirit animal, and we just could not be more thrilled to have her with us today. So with that, let's give a warm welcome to Miss Liz Wiseman.
Rickson, thank you. I could not be more happy to be a spirit animal, and I'm just delighted to be with you to talk about leadership. How do you level up your leadership? How do you level up your team? Our focus in our conversation today is going to be on intelligence. And how do you build a really intelligent team? How do you build a team of people who can, of course, think and act with reason and make smart decisions, but a team that can get things done and that can take smart risks and can adapt as the environment around you is changing? How do you build a really brilliant team that's at its best? And how do you build a team where you're getting access to all of people's best thinking and best work? And how do you ensure that not only are you getting the best from people, you're getting the most from people? all of people's intelligence and capability and talent. And maybe included in that, how do you develop for yourself a reputation as someone who not only utilizes people's talent fully, but someone who develops talent deeply? That's what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a big conversation. I'm going to do some of the talking. You might have already figured out my voice is a little bit hoarse, and you're going to do a lot of the talking here with me, so we're going to have a big conversation. I want to start that conversation with just a couple observations, and they are the observations that I had from my time as an operational executive at Oracle, helping to grow that company. And they're the operations that informed my research and the book and the conversation we're going to talk about today. But the first of these observations was that inside of our work teams, there is more intelligence than we can see with our naked eye. That there's a lot more intelligence, by that I mean intellect, know-how, talent, insight, creativity, than most managers are using. There's a lot of people who are working really hard, but secretly they're bored. It's one of the dirty little secrets in the corporate world. We don't talk about it that much, is that there are a lot of people who are really busy but bored. There are a lot of people who are working extremely hard, but yet they would tell you that they're underutilized. Now, my guess is that everyone here in this room has had an experience at some point in your career where you were simultaneously overworked but underutilized. Have you had that experience? You know, coming into work knowing you have more know-how, skill, insight, talent, capability than is being noticed or being used or being appreciated? Okay, what is this experience like? What is it like to be simultaneously overworked and underutilized? Now, here's what I want us to do. When I say conversation, I want to hear from everyone over the course of today. We are not going to take turns. Please don't raise your hand. We're not going to pass microphones. I'm going to ask you to just practice the ancient art of shouting. Okay? So I just want you to blurt out, shout out what you're thinking. What is it like to be overworked and underutilized? It's frustrating. It leads to burnout. It's boring. It's draining. Demoralizing. Disengaging. It's unsustainable. It's unsustainable. We often think of like working hard is unsustainable. It's actually being underutilized is unsustainable. You know, we think that burnout is a result of people having too much work, right? People burn out because I've got too much on my shoulders, too much expected of me. But more often than not, we find that people tend to burn out because they're having too little impact, because they're underutilized. Okay, that was his first observation. It seems like there are too many people inside our organization who are working really hard but are actually underutilized. Which led to the second observation, is that some leaders seem to see unused intelligence better than others. They notice it. They appreciate it. They put it to work. They utilize people at their fullest. I came to call these leaders multipliers for the effect that they have on others, versus the diminisher leader, who perhaps is just so preoccupied, so focused, that they don't see and use the talent around them. This is the idea we're going to explore today. We are going to, if we can get the slides up here, that'd be great. We're going to start our conversation here looking at why is it that some leaders seem to amplify intelligence while others drain it, while others kind of suck the life out of an organization. And we're going to explore this idea of leader as multiplier versus leader as diminisher. And we're going to start with just this simple little video.
What is the fate of the smart and the talented? The corporate world finds smart, talented people and promotes them into management. But many of these leaders never look beyond their own capability to see the full genius on their team. Have you ever worked around someone who made you feel smarter and more capable? We call these leaders multipliers. Have you ever worked around someone who made you question your own intelligence? We call these leaders diminishers. They may hire smart people, but they quickly put other people in the background. They are smart leaders, but they shut down the smarts of others. Diminishers come at such a high cost, they waste talent and intellect that sits right in front of them. Organizations can't afford diminishers. Multipliers come from all walks of life, from corporate boardrooms to our schools' classrooms. They are leaders like Lutz Ziob, Bill Campbell, Wangari Maathai, and many more. These people are real, and the way they lead can be learned and it can be developed. What would happen in your organization if you operated more like a multiplier? Imagine what is possible with access to all the intelligence that sits in your organization.
Okay, leader as multiplier versus leader as diminisher. As you were watching that short video, who here had names of people come to mind? Everyone? Okay, what came to mind first? Was it the diminisher or the multiplier in your past? Or present? Yeah, for a lot of people, this is the diminisher. And those leaders could end up haunting us for a long time. Here's what I want you to do. If you had names of people come to mind, I want you to keep thinking about this. I want you, if you would, to scan back on your work experience. And I want you to identify 2 different leaders that you worked around. Now it could be here at AwardCo. It could be a previous company. This could be perhaps in your university days. This could be a professor. It could be a sports coach, a music teacher. And I want you to grab 2 names, one of whom was a diminisher to you. They're smart. They're surrounded by smart, capable people, but yet hard problems aren't getting solved. Like maybe you're working really hard, but feel like you're not making any progress. Or maybe it's someone that you're just holding back around. Has everyone got the name of one diminisher? Now I want you to lock that name in your mind. Okay, we do not want to hear this name throughout the course of our conversation. But I want you to get that name in your mind. You could be thinking about that leader. I also want you to scan back on that same experience. Again, it could be 2 days ago. This could be, for some people, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And identify someone who is a multiplier to you. And again, this could have been when you were young, but someone around whom you did your best work, your best thinking. You were at your very best around this leader. Does everyone have one? Here's what I'd love to have you do. I've got 2 questions I would love to have you answer about each person. Now, I love that everyone's already figured out the questions are written down on the second page here. Now, the first question, what did your diminisher do? In that box, would you describe the diminisher's behavior? If I were to come and watch them conduct a staff meeting or a product review or troubleshoot something with someone, a hallway conversation perhaps, what would I notice that leader doing? What did he or she do and how they managed and led? Okay, now the second question's a little tricky. Let me explain it. The second question is, how much of your intelligence did that leader get from you? On a scale of 0 to 100. So 100 is all of your insight. Maybe it's your technical skills. Maybe it's your knowledge of the client, your talent, your energy. Here's why it's a tricky question. I am not asking you how hard you were working. You could have been working extremely hard. I want to know how much of your brain power were they getting access to based on the way they led. So if your intellect is 100 apples on a tree, I want to know how many did they pick versus sort of leave there. And then the same 2 questions about the multiplier. And would you take a minute or 2 to just gather your thoughts? We're going to talk about this, so just keywords. got another 30 seconds. Couple keywords, 2 numbers. Okay, here is what I would love to have you do with that. I'm going to ask you at your table to go around your table to start with the diminisher, and you're going to have 3 minutes to describe the diminisher behaviors. So person by person, just describe the diminisher's behavior. I'm going to ask you to keep it clinical, meaning no stories, because I can tell you this very quickly can turn into diminisher therapy sessions for people, like long, sad stories with tears and all of this. So just keep it clinical, describe the behavior. What I'm going to ask you to do is listen for what is common across this. What is it that leaders do that cause people to shut down, hold back, play it safe? And then would you share the number you wrote down, and can someone at each table calculate an average? Just if you happen to be the math savant of the table, or if you've got a calculator, or do it in your head, calculate an average of this. Okay, you are going to have 3 minutes for your diminisher, and then we are going to do 3 minutes on the multiplier. So stay on the diminisher till I come in and tell you it's time, and then we're going to talk about your multiplier. Okay. And feel free to have fun with this. Go. Okay, that is time. Can I ask you to pause your conversation on your diminisher? If you haven't calculated an average, please do so. Would you now spend the next 3 minutes and do the exact same thing for the multiplier leader? What did they do? Go around your circle, calculate an average, go. Pause your conversation. We are going to continue it in this full room. I want you to tell me what you noticed. So you had a chance to reflect on your experience working for a leader we call a diminisher. You got to hear from, I don't know, 4 or 5 other people and their experience. What did you notice? What do diminishers tend to do? And I'm going to ask you, this is where we are just going to do a lot of shouting. So tell me what you noticed. Tell me what you heard. Tell me what's on your mind. You do not have to tell me everything that's on your mind. But I really want to hear what you're thinking.
Diminishers have ego.
Diminishers are operating from a place of ego. What else? What do? They don't listen. They're dismissive. They take all the credit. They take all the credit. They aren't collaborative. They
don't care about you as a person.
Don't necessarily care about you as a person. But did anyone have a diminisher who really did care about you as a person?
I did. Yes. Yeah.
Not you?
I did.
Oh, you did. I thought you were like, nope, not me. not the person I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like
great person, cared about me, but the big issue was like just the objectives were so unclear. There was no real why behind the work. There was no real strategy, and so therefore the work was unclear.
Okay, super interesting, because when I started this research, I imagined that these diminishers were these like egotistical, selfish, hot-headed, dismissive, bully types. But you know, I found that there are a number of people who diminish through passivity, who weren't clear. I remember one guy I interviewed, he's like, yeah, my diminisher, like he just could never make up his mind. He was never available. I could never get direction from him. He said it was the worst job, but I learned to sail, you know, because he just filled up his time with sailing lessons because he couldn't get traction at work. Okay, what else did you notice? What do diminishers tend to do? They're dismissive. They dismiss ideas. What else do they dismiss? Change, good work, feelings.
We felt like strategy or prioritization, like any of that.
Yeah, that maybe it's this lack of focus. And in some ways, this diminishing way of working can be this maniacal way of working, which is like they're all over things, they're always moving, but there's no through line. And you can't figure out, see, it's hard to figure out where something is going if someone is all over the place. So it's hard to be with them. It's hard to be out ahead of them because you cannot figure that through line out. It's like skiing behind, you know, a novice. And you're like, I'm not quite sure where they're going. So I'm just going to have to hold back here. What else? Blame? Yeah, what's their game? What's their ammo? What's their currency in how they lead? They lead with blame. They lead with
Fear.
Fear? Yeah, now I heard something. It wasn't really the shouting I was looking for, but I do realize that this shouting stuff is great because there are some extroverts. Who are the extroverts here in the room? We've probably already heard from them. I know the room is probably full of some extroverts, but I know that this room also contains probably very thoughtful, quiet introverts. And I want to hear from you as well. So if you are more introverted, you want to think before you start just yelling your ideas, here's what I want you to do. You are just going to whisper your ideas to your loud-mouthed, extroverted neighbor. Okay? You let them do your dirty work for you today, because I really do want to hear from everyone. Any other insights on the diminisher? Okay, how much of your capability did they get? Now, I need someone in this room who will calculate an average of these averages. Okay, and we're looking for a volunteer. Someone?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. And your name is?
Justin.
Justin. Okay, do you want us to like make it easy and give you 10 data points, or do you want the whole room?
I don't care. We can do the whole room.
Okay, I like it. Justin, gonna do the whole room. Here we go.
33%.
33.
35.
35. 25.
38.
38.
43.
43.
33.
33.
20.
20.
51.
51.
33.
33.
That was
In the back? Nope.
48.
48.
34.
34.
57.
57.
53.
53.
38.
38.
32.
And 32. Okay, we're going to give Justin a moment to calculate that. Now, I know some of you are calculating in your head. Now, while Justin's doing that, I want you to get inside the head of that diminishing leader. Does everyone remember the name? Got that name locked in? What was the belief that that leader was operating from? I want you to tell me, what's the belief that's governing the behavior? What's their assumption about you, about the team, about them, about the work? They believed that
They know what's best.
that they know what's best. They believed that
They've clearly communicated.
that they were clearly communicating. They believed that this is just how things are. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Their time is more important here.
That they believe that their time was more important than yours. Ooh, I think I've held that belief before as a manager. As I've run from meeting to meeting, boy, I think I've thought that before. Anyone else here? Okay, what else? What did that diminishing leader believe?
They're the smartest in the room.
That they were the smartest in the room. Justin, what did we find?
30%.
30%. Okay, so for the diminisher, 30%. Now, before we go on to the multiplier, I want you to go back again to that point in time. How much of your know-how and intelligence and capability were you wanting to give? This is not a trick question. All of it. Yeah, all of it. But now some of you are thinking, wait a minute, my number wasn't all of it. I started to hear someone say, well, all of it in the beginning. But it sort of is like 100% that can easily go down to nothing. You know, it's interesting. I've been able to study some of the best leaders all around the world, worked in some of the most amazing organizations. I've also had to study some of the worst leaders in the world. And the thing I've really learned, it's not so much about the leaders. What I've really come to understand deeply is about the contributors. And what I have come to see is that people all around the world, whether they work in Silicon Slopes, in Silicon Valley, whether they work in hospitality or healthcare or software or biotech, like people come to work desperately wanting to contribute 100% of their capability. It's not unique to a type of people. See, what happens in the space, we'll call that 100, between 100 and 30, like what people want to contribute versus what they're able to contribute around diminishing leaders. What happens in that space? What grows in that space? What gets built in that space? Resentment, uncertainty, demotivation, and complacency, anxiety, fear. And again, introverts, whisper your thinking to your loudmouth neighbors. What else? What gets built in that space? Animosity, toxicity, inefficiency. I remember I once was up at Slack. Was it Slack or Twilio? It was a software company up in the city. I asked, like, what gets built in that space? They're like, shitty projects. So shitty software gets built in that space, right? Yeah, what grows in that space? What happens in that culture? When people are trying to contribute at their fullest, but they're running into some sort of barrier. Okay, let's talk about the multiplier leader. What did your multiplier believe to be true?
Always more to learn.
There was always more to learn.
That they weren't the smartest.
That they weren't the smartest.
They empower people to think and to ask questions, to think, to partner with people.
Okay, let's describe what they do. Let's go. Okay, what did you notice when you thought about, like, the person who was a multiplier to you? You listened to others. What was the trend you saw across that? What is it that multiplier leaders do? Those who get the best from us. They trust. They trust. They believe. What do they believe?
Your potential.
They believe in your potential.
They have expectations.
They have high expectations for you. What else? What do they do? And I want to come back to this idea of what do we believe. We started there, but I want to come back and really see if we can nail that belief. But let's describe the behavior.
They recognize and they give credit where it's due.
They recognize and they give credit where it's due. What else? What is it they consistently do?
Care for you as an individual.
Care for you as an individual, which means that they see you as a whole person, not just a human manifestation of a job description. What else? They empathize. They're
present and they listen.
They're present and they listen. What else? Now, my publisher notices something when I submitted the first version of the manuscript. She looked at it, and one of the many things that she said was, wow, these are not cupcakes and kisses kinds of leaders. Because what she could see was they trusted, supported, cared for you, empathized, listened, all of that, yes, but that's almost like a table stake. Because what's on the hard edge? She could see that these leaders had a bit of a hard edge.
Accountability.
Accountability. I remember it was a project I was doing here in this state, coaching a very senior executive, ran a large global IT operation, and I interviewed the executives that worked for him. I interviewed people on his management team, and almost every one of them said, I wished he held us accountable. Why would that be? Like, don't we kind of appreciate leaders who let us slide a little bit? Why would they want him to hold them accountable? See, what does it say when you hold someone accountable? Let's start with the opposite. What does it say when you don't hold someone accountable?
You don't care.
I don't really care about what you're doing. What else does it say? It really doesn't matter what you do. Like, your piece cannot come together and we'll be fine. Or maybe your piece isn't important. Or you can't really measure up to the standards anyway. So I'm going to have to let you slide. What does it say when you hold someone accountable for reasonable standards? It says, I care about you. What you do matters.
We need you.
We need you. Like, you're an essential part of this team. And we found this duality. What else did you notice with your multipliers or with what you heard on that hard edge? Candid conversations. They tell me like it is. They're not afraid to tell me the truth. What else? Growth. They expect growth. What else?
They increase the minimum level of what success looks like when they came into the organization.
Interesting. Yeah, like the average goes up, like skews to the right. Interesting. Anything else that you noticed?
They weren't intimidated by the success of others.
They were not intimidated by the success of others. Yeah, like it's an abundant orientation toward success. They have high expectations. I know for me, my multipliers, one of whom was Larry Ellison, who, my multipliers at Oracle, they asked me to do crazy hard things when I was young. 25 years old, I'm thrown into management, given a huge responsibility. And what they mostly did was never save me. They just let me kind of work through that hard thing myself. Okay, and then how much of your capability did they get? Justin, would you be willing to do this again for us?
Do it.
Okay. Over here, your multiplier.
100%.
100%.
90.
90. 80. 90. 90. 86. 90. 96. 97. 92. 93. 92.
85.
85. 85.
82.
And 82. Did we miss anyone? Okay, while Justin's calculating that, I want to come back again to this belief. Get inside the head of that multiplier. What fundamentally do they believe to be true? They believe that, or you know what, let me ask this, let me add another layer to this. Because I know probably some of you are already thinking about, am I a multiplier? Boy, if the people who worked for me were here in this room, and maybe some of you have people who work for you here in the room, like, which side are they putting me on? Are they putting me on more of the diminisher or the multiplier? I want you to go back to a time when you felt like you were operating like a multiplier. Can everyone think of one? Maybe it was a given meeting. Maybe it was in a given job. Maybe it's with a specific person. Like, what was your belief? What did you believe to be true? Multipliers believe that
The team can't reach its highest potential without everyone contributing.
the team cannot reach its highest potential without everyone contributing. It reminds me of there's an article I was writing for Academic Medicine, and there was a Stanford resident who said his multiplier was an emergency room physician. And he said, boy, you know, he took us to the outer edge of what we knew. He very quickly established, okay, what do we know in this situation? Okay, this is happening, this is happening. What do we don't know? He said, we worked from there. And he said, the way this ER doc operated, it was as if every single person in that healthcare chain was essential to an outcome. Not just the attending physician, but the residents, the interns, the techs, the nurses, the family in the waiting room, the social workers. Every single player played an important role into achieving a successful outcome in an emergency situation. What else? That every bit of the work is crucial. Yeah, that every role is needed and valued. Okay, Justin, and anyone you want to add more? And again, jump in, shout it out.
The eventual success is more important than like a one-off experience in the moment.
The eventual success is more important than a one-off experience in a moment. Yeah, like there's some larger trajectory, something larger at play. What did we find?
90%.
90%. 90% for the multiplier. I want to just pause here for a second, and I want to see like what observations you have just based on this. And feel free to start with just the simplest of observations. Based on your own experience working for diminishers versus multipliers. There is no observation too simple here.
Still not 100%.
It's still not 100%. Like there's some more here, right? What else?
It's more fulfilling to work for a multiplier.
It's more fulfilling to work for a multiplier. See, we kind of talked about what this was like. Frustrating, demoralizing, draining, demotivating, unsustainable. What is this like? What was it like to work for your multiplier? It was exciting, fun, enjoyable. Energizing, purposeful. Like when I look back on my days at Oracle in early days, I would say, man, it was hard. In some ways, it was brutal, but it was so fun. Like I loved every minute of it. It was great. It felt like a little bit tiring, but totally exhilarating. Any other observations you would make? Say more.
Working for a multiplier, you gain experience that you take with you. And I think in the moment, it's very obvious that it's beneficial to you.
Yeah, it's beneficial to you. And we find that multipliers are great developers of talent. And in part of the research, we suspected, oh, you know what? I bet multipliers have higher retention than diminishers. You would think, right? It's not necessarily true because multipliers are constantly developing talent and moving them around inside the organization. Like, hey, you know what? You've grown as much as you can here. You go take that job. I've got you. And why? Why can they let go of talent?
They know they can develop more.
They know that they can develop more, and they know there are like talent in the wings. Like these kind of leaders develop the reputation of these are people you want to work for. And they have people lining up, flocking to work for them. Companies can develop the same kind of reputation. Let me tell you a little bit about what we found in the research. I want to go through this kind of quickly because this is not where I think the most interesting of the insights are. When we looked at these multiplier versus diminisher leaders, we could see that they were operating from very different assumptions. The diminisher is operating from this assumption, not necessarily that they're the smartest person in the room. Some do, but for the most part, they're operating from this assumption that people aren't going to figure it out without me. That they're necessary, essential, that people can't operate and succeed independently. Whereas the multiplier is operating from this belief that fundamentally people are smart and can figure it out. Now, if you are familiar with the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, what we find is that the multiplier not only holds a growth mindset about themselves, a growth mindset being, this belief that, with the right kind of information and training and coaching, you can solve harder problems, that intelligence is not fixed. It can grow with use. The multiplier is holding that growth mindset about the people that they work for, that work for them. Here are the things that they do very differently. The first is how they manage talent. The diminisher tends to be an empire builder. They love to hire smart people. They love to build an organization of talented people, but people become like little knickknacks in grandma's curio cabinet, like on display to be seen, but really not well used. Whereas the multiplier, they're talent magnets. Talent is drawn to them because they develop talent, they use it. They see people as more than just a set of skills or a job description. They see people for what they're brilliant at, naturally. And they use it, they challenge it, they recognize it, they appreciate it, and they grow that talent. The second difference is the work environment. They create the culture. And the diminisher tends to be a tyrant. They create a culture that is tense, full of stress. And we know what happens to our ability to think and reason and solve hard problems when we're experiencing stress. Amygdala hijack, neocortex, freezes up, and we actually physiologically get stupid around diminishing leaders, which reinforces this belief that, they're going to have to do the thinking for the group, because everywhere they go, they are seeing people at their weakest, at their worst, at their slowest. The multiplier tends to be a liberator. They give people space to do their best thinking. They create an environment that is not tense, it's intense. The third difference is how they set direction. The diminisher tends to be a know-it-all. They set direction based on what they know, what they see, what their experience tells them to do, which means they rarely give teams problems that they don't know how to solve. The organization is inherently limited by their own expertise. They become like a capacitor for the organization. The multiplier tends to be a challenger. They invite people to explore possibilities. They don't give directives, they ask questions. They ask questions that get people thinking. They ask questions that make people uncomfortable. The fourth difference is how they make decisions. The diminisher tends to be the decision maker. They make fast decisions, inner circle decisions. They make good decisions, but they make decisions that leave other people unsure, confused, slow to execute, wondering, why are we doing this? Did they consider that? Whereas the multiplier tends to be a debate maker. Not debating everything, not constantly debating every decision, but on the vital decisions, the ones that are going to affect the course of the organization. That's where they frame the issue, pose the question, assemble a brain trust of the right people with the right expertise, argue it hard, and end up driving really sound decisions. Lastly, how do they get things done? The diminisher tends to be a micromanager. They get it done, but it doesn't get done without them there, which means they tend to be overworked while other people tend to be underutilized. The multiplier tends to be the investor. They give other people ownership and the accountability that goes with it. When I was doing this research, one of the people I interviewed talked about his multiplier, John Chambers, who was the CEO of Cisco, the networking company that makes the routers, and I don't see one here in the room. So when Chambers has taken over as CEO, it's a young, growing tech company. He's the new CEO. He's making his first executive hire. and he's hiring a man named Doug to run customer support. And he says to Doug, when it comes to this part of the business, you get 51% of the vote and 100% of the accountability. I think this is great leadership shorthand, because what has he just said to Doug? What has he said? It's full of messaging. He said,
He doesn't have full control.
you don't have full control. That John doesn't have full control? He gives him 51% of the vote.
Well, I guess in that way he does have control, because when it comes to the vote, he can sway one way or another.
Yeah, he's saying you are final decision maker. What else is he saying to him?
You're responsible.
You're responsible. We trust you. You're the expert. This is yours. You get 51% of the vote. But he gives him 51, not 49. And by giving him 51, he holds back 49. What is he also saying?
I'll challenge you, but you get the final say.
I'll challenge you, but you get the final say. Hey, listen to me. Take my point of view into consideration. Talk to your peers. Counsel with other people. Keep us informed, but in the end, you own it. One of the most powerful things you can do, if you want people to own something, give them 51% of the vote and 100% of the accountability. And we find that these diminishers are getting less than half of people's available intelligence. Here, it's a 3x difference done conservatively in this research. It's a 2x difference. And maybe this is the first place to pause, and I think the question, what questions might you be asking for yourself right now? Hit me with a bunch of them.
How do I become the multiplier?
How do I become a multiplier? What else might you be asking?
What beliefs drive my actions?
What beliefs drive my actions? Yeah. You can develop a lot of the multiplier skills, but the real power is developing the multiplier mindset. Any other questions you might be asking yourself?
How do I resolve negative feelings towards people who I consider diminishing?
Wow, that's a great question. What do I do with the diminishers? You said it in such a positive way. Most people are like, how do I take out a contract on their life? That's how most people tend to feel about their diminishers. But how do I work for a diminisher? How do I resolve that? Because I can tell you they create toxicity all around them. What else might you be asking yourself?
In what ways am I both?
In what ways am I both? Am I having a diminishing effect on anyone? Here's one of the questions that I want you, we're going to play with together is it possible that I'm having a diminishing effect totally unaware of it? And is it possible that you could have a diminishing effect while trying to be a really good manager? Now, my guess is by the fact that you're all here, that you all want to be really good managers. And what we find now in this research, and if we get the slides back up, we find that these diminishing leaders are getting less than half of people's available intelligence. But what we find is that most of the diminishing that's coming is coming from leaders with really good intentions. It's over 66% of the diminishing behavior in the workplace is coming from what I call the accidental diminisher. Good person, trying to be a good leader. The person who's excited about a management training course, first to sign up. Person who read management books. People like me who write management books, who want to be good leaders, but yet are having a diminishing effect. So here's what we're going to explore is how do we end up having a diminishing effect with the very best of intentions? In fact, I wouldn't mind it if you kind of locked a hypothesis in your mind, or maybe wrote it down. What might you be doing with the best of intentions that feels helpful, supportive, positive, that's actually causing people to shut down, play it safe?
Well, that example you gave of not holding people accountable, Like you're working really hard, so I'm gonna let you slide on this one because I know you're burning up both ends.
Yeah, not holding people accountable, letting it slide, going easy, done with the best of intentions. Any others? I just want you to hold them in your head. I'm going to go through several of them. I'm going to go through 9. I want to start the conversation we're going to have about this with one of my favorite leaders. For some of you, you might recognize his picture, might be a favorite athlete of yours. He's a phenomenal business leader. He came out and spoke at Silicon Slopes a few years ago. Does anyone recognize him? This is him in high school.
Magic Johnson?
This is Magic Johnson. This is Magic Johnson before he's Magic Johnson, though. If you really know who this is, you'll know his birth name is Irvin. Irvin Johnson Jr., phenomenally talented athlete. Just a phenom. He was a phenom. I've been reading his biography. His phenom, like back in middle school. His coach said something to him that he said really shaped him as a leader. His coach said, Irvin, every time you get the ball, I want you to, what would it be? Pass? Make the team better? Who here played high school basketball? Anyone? Okay, what do you think his coach said to him? Score. This is what his coach says. Coach says, Irvin, every time you get the ball, I want you to take the shot. And so he did, and he scores a lot of points. Now, the coach loves it because he's not only phenomenally talented, he's coachable, right? And the other players love it because they're winning. They're winning. It's like, is there a high school kid that doesn't want to be on a winning team? No, it's thrilling. And this is going on win after win after win. Irvin would have scored, well, they would win with, let's say, 54 points, and Irvin would have scored high 30s on a bad day. But into the 40s, sometimes 50 or 52 of those points. And, but everyone loves it. There's this one particular game, nothing special about the game. What was special is that this young man happened to notice the faces of the parents after the end of the game. Celebration has come to the end. The kids are now leaving the gymnasium with their parents headed for the parking lot, and Irvin notices the faces of the parents, who, of course, came there to see what? Their kid. Their kid. Maybe the first game was thrilling. It's kind of this like early version of Lakers Showtime magic. But he sees this on their faces, and he said it really shaped him, changed him. He said he made a decision that he would use his God-given talent to help everyone on the team be a better player. Now, I share this story for 2 reasons. One is I think it captures what it's like to be a multiplier leader. Because it's not like he then went forth in his career and only passed. Like if you've ever seen him play, I've watched a lot of his film. He plays huge, huge. But he plays in a way that invites other people to play big. Like, can you as a leader play big, but do it in a way that creates kind of an opportunity for others to play big? Now, the other reason why I share it is I think it captures how easy it is to end up the accidental diminisher, doing what we have been taught to do, coached to do, celebrated for doing, but playing so big. Not that we're holding people back, but we're just playing so big, nobody else has to show up big. They're just letting us do our thing. Okay, I'm going to go through 9 accidental diminisher tendencies. What I would encourage you to do is to pick the one that you think might be at play for you. Somebody has already noticed that there are some stickers. There's a little sheet here at the beginning of the table. These are some stickers. You can imagine what I want you to do with those. There's also, if you turn over to, there's a chart that has those diminishing tendencies up at the top. You can circle one of those. I'm going to go through each one, and I'm going to show you 2 pictures. I'm going to start with the idea fountain because this one is my big accidental diminisher tendency. The picture on the left represents the leader's positive intent, their best intent. The picture on the right represents the effect that they have on others. Okay, the idea fountain. These are people who are creative. They want an innovative environment. They are popping off ideas. They're full of ideas like, hey, what about this? Have you tried this? Have you considered this? Maybe we should do this. They pop off ideas, and it's not that they think their ideas are better. What's the positive intent? I'm going to toss out ideas and then... And then you'll have some, see what resonates, see what sticks. I'm going to like signal to people that we are getting the brainstorming going, right? That's the positive intent. What happens around the idea fountain? What's it like to work for idea fountain? Chaotic. It's like this. Okay, you got me over here, and then you got me over there. Okay, always on, energetic. These are people who often have a lot of charisma, a lot of riz. My son taught me that term. These are people who are always something to say, always contributing, always there. And of course, they think their energy is what? Contagious, like, woo, this is so great, woo. They're motivating people, right? What's it like to work for the always-on leader? It's exhausting. It's like you're killing me with this energy. See, they tend to drain others. What do we do to the always-on leader? What do you do when you see them coming down the hallway towards your office? Yeah, it looks a little bit like this. These are leaders we do our best not to make eye contact with, right? So they shut down others and we shut them out. It's a scenario where nobody really gets heard. Okay, the rescuer, big-hearted leaders. They love people. They care about people. They want people to be successful. They're people. When someone starts struggling with a hard piece of work, like empathy kicks in, their heart says, I care about this person, I've got their back, let me step in and help. But what happens when the leader is helpful too early or too often? Yeah, what's it like for the other person? And of course, we think we're sending this message, I got you, I'm here for you, I care about you, I got your back. But what's the message that actually gets sent every time we rescue? What's messaged in our behavior?
You're not capable of solving it on your own.
You are not capable without me. Which, if you remember, is the very essence of the diminishing mindset. Okay, pace setter. This is the driven, achievement-oriented leader. They are showing people what good looks like. Hey, we're going to be more customer-centric, so I'm going to spend time with customers and write up reports about our customers and talk about our customers. They're showing people what they want other people to do. They're getting out ahead of them. And of course, the intention is I'm going to get out ahead of people. They will notice and they will follow. But what actually happens when the leader sets the pace? What happens when the leader gets out ahead of the team by a car length or two? What do people tend to do? Speed up? Draft?
In a
or
race, you can find another pace setter, right? If yours is too far ahead, you're going to go with the other.
You go back with the other. People tend to fall back. People tend to watch. See, when we lead by setting the pace, we are more likely to create spectators than followers. If you've got pace setter tendencies, you know which one of these dogs represents you as a leader. Right, it's like these leaders are running around their team. The rapid responder, these are people who are on it, who are on top of things, quick to react to a problem, a Slack, a message, an opportunity, an email. They're quick to jump on things, but their logic is, I'm going to build this agile team that can move fast and jump on opportunities and problems. But what's it like to work for the rapid responder? What do other people tend to do? What do you do when an email note is sent to you? It's your area of responsibility, but you see copied there the rapid responder.
Let them do it.
Yeah, you just wait and let them do it. It absolutely erodes ownership in organizations. Okay, the optimist, this is positive can-do leaders. They see possibilities. They see victory. What do they tend to overlook? Challenges and obstacles. See, often what they don't see is people struggle and what it takes to get there. The protector, this is the rescuers moved upstream of the problem because they're not even letting people get into trouble. They're protecting them from difficult decisions, difficult conversations, difficult issues, difficult people. Their logic is, I will sort of shield people so that they can do their work. But they become like a banyan tree. They provide comfort and shade, but what's the problem with the banyan tree? Yeah, nothing grows under the tree, and people do not grow under these leaders. The strategist, big, bold thinker, paints a big, clear, compelling vision. But nobody else has to do the big thinking. Everyone else feels like they just need to do their piece. And the manager is like, why is everyone working in silos? Delegating the big, hard thinking up. Lastly, the perfectionist who loves to get it exactly right. And if you have perfectionist tendencies, you probably know who you are. Probably know this about you, but do you know what it's like to work for you? What's it like to work for the perfectionist? Yeah, it's exhausting. It's like blood and loss. Never good enough. So my question is, what might be your accidental diminisher tendency? Here's what I am going to invite you to do, is if you would pull out this document. It's got the accidental diminisher tendencies here at the top. Would you circle one, what your accidental diminisher tendency is? Have a look down there. Use those yellow check marks to find some of the leadership practices that will help remedy that accidental diminisher tendency. And then here's what I would love to have you do. Once you identify your accidental diminisher tendency, for me, it is idea fountain for sure. And I might also put optimist on here. Go ahead, put a sticker on, wear it with a little bit of pride. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to have a conversation with someone. And there's two ways to do this. You can find a partner in the room, and I'm going to have you like move and mingle through the room. It could be someone at your table. It could be somewhere else. But would you either tell that person what you see as your accidental diminisher tendency, how that plays out, what practice you might take instead, and then they can share theirs with you. That's option one. Option two is the more interesting option. You all know each other. You work with each other. Option two is get a little feedback, which means I might find someone and say, okay, I see myself as a bit of an idea fountain. What do you notice? What do you see? And I might even hand them the sticker sheet and let them put, they might say, oh, Liz, I see a little bit of rapid responder. You tend to be quick to jump on things. And they might add that into the mix. And I'm going to give you a chance to have a couple rounds of conversation. Each round is going to be 2 minutes. So you're going to find a partner, a minute per person, and then I'm going to signal time, and you're going to go find another partner. Okay? So this is a great chance to get feedback. This is a great chance to have some fun with this. Find a partner, ask them for insight or share your insight. Go.
I'm
sorry, I'm doing such a sucky job.
It's so bad. I just talked to Larry. as soon as you're done, let me run interference. You just Larry will come pick you up. So you just,
I'm not worried.
we'll just.
And he said we can go to like 12:10 because I'm kind of slow because I'm
I know,
foggy.
of course you're doing great.
Okay.
Let me know if there's anything else.
Okay, that is time. That is round one. What I would love to have you do is find another partner and get feedback from another person, okay? Share, here's what I see as my accidental diminisher tendency. What do you see? Go. Find a new partner. Got about 30 more seconds. Okay, can I ask you to end the conversation, have a seat. Okay, now we did a couple rounds of this, and I wouldn't mind if you did a third round of this. Maybe have one more conversation with someone today. Why so many rounds? This is about a warm-up. This is about practice, because who do you think I really want you to talk about your accidental diminisher tendencies with? With your teams, with your teams. Here's what we have found. We've been at this for a while. And there are a couple ways to get this multiplier effect going. There's a couple ways to be more of a multiplier. One is to be hyper aware of your accidental diminisher tendencies. To be on vigil, watching for them, to develop this repertoire of multiplier practices. We're going to talk about a few of them today. Andrew's going to do more of this in June and in August. That is one way. It is the harder way. Now, there's a way to cheat that. And I want to encourage you to cheat this process just a little bit. And the way to cheat this, to shortcut this, is to talk so openly with your teams about your accidental diminisher tendencies that everybody knows it. Everybody teases you about it. People talk openly. People laugh at you about it. Everyone laughs at me about my idea fountain tendencies. It's so open and so public that what happens? They give you feedback, and even beyond giving you feedback, because you know this. They hold you accountable, and it's even more than holding you accountable. They call you out, and they stop you in real time. You see, if everyone on my team knows that I'm an idea fountain, and I have this great idea for this piece of research, and I call up our research director. I'm like, Lauren, hey, I've got this idea for a study. What if we compare this kind of work and this, what creates burnout and the cognitive load? And I'm all jazzed up. And this was a conversation I had with her recently, and I called her, and I'm super excited about this research. What does it give her the right to do? What happens? How does that play out? She kind of says, Liz, turn off the fountain. She says, hey, Liz, that sounds super interesting. I'd love to do that. Do you want us to stop what we're working on and go do that? Or are you having an idea party right now? An idea party. What happens if everyone on your team knows that you're a rescuer and you are about to step in at the 11th hour and save a project? What does it give that person permission to do? If everyone knows you're a rescuer, they tease you about it.
Decline your help.
To decline your help. It gives that person a chance to channel their inner 3-year-old. Because what happens when you try to do for the 3-year-old what 3-year-olds can't do for herself? What do they say?
I can do it.
I do it, Daddy, right? I do it. Me. And it just gives them a right to assert their capability. It does not require a leadership transplant on your part, because who on your team is most motivated for you to be a multiplier? They are. Right. So one of the things I hope you will do as a result of our time together is go have a conversation with your team about your accidental diminisher tendencies. You can take the stickers with you. A lot of managers have this conversation with their whole team, and they talk about everyone's accidental diminisher tendencies. The companies that make the most progress and build this culture where people can show up, not at this rate, but at this rate, are people who not just put the multiplier poster on the wall, so to speak, they have this accidental diminisher conversation out in the air. And I want to encourage you to start that conversation with your team. And they will help you to be the kind of leader that they need. Now, we're going to spend our last time together, and we've got about 10 more minutes together talking about a set of practices. Andrew is going to go into some depth on these in June and August. But what I hope is that one of these will jump out at you. Maybe it's something that had a yellow check mark there, something that would help your accidental diminisher tendency. But I want to ask you to experiment with one of these in the next week. There are 7 up here. Each of these are a shift. It's a shift from something that is probably comfortable but diminishing to a shift that's something that is going to put the burden of thinking and work on your team. The first of these shifts is shifting out of the mode of telling, of giving answers, and operating in the mode of asking questions. Asking the questions that focus the energy and intelligence of your team on the right problems. Asking the questions that share the burden of thinking and take that burden of thinking from your shoulders and share that burden of thinking with your team. Some of you might want to take what I call the extreme question challenge. And that is to go into a meeting, maybe it's a one-on-one, maybe it's a staff meeting, maybe it's a product planning meeting, to go into that meeting and lead it only by asking questions. No statements, no directives, just questions. This challenge is hard. It's a challenge that changed me forever as a leader because I was maybe the first recipient of the extreme question challenge. This came about 21 years ago. I was working at Oracle and I had a really big job. I managed a lot of people, a big division of the company. It was a hard job, but it was nothing compared to my job at home, being mom to 3 young children. And does anyone have the 642 combo pack at your house? Anyone got the 642? So you probably know what my life was like. It's probably very similar to your life. I'm talking to my buddy Brian at work, and I say, hey, Brian, you know, I feel like I'm not being a very good parent right now because I am constantly barking orders at my kids and telling my kids what to do. I feel like I become this little dictator in my house. And Brian, I think I must have said, I feel like I've become this bossy mom. And Brian said, oh, Liz, you don't strike me as the bossy mom type. I'm like, oh, really? Let me describe bedtime at our house. So for those of you who have the 642 combo pack, what's bedtime like in a word?
Hell.
Hell, yeah. Chaos. Yeah. Looks like chaos, feels like hell, right? Yeah, no, and I've described it. I'm like, this is how it goes. Kids, time for bed, put that away. Leave her alone, put that back over here. Get your pajamas on. Go brush your teeth. No, use toothpaste this time. Okay, story time, get a book. No, not 5 books, no long books, no big books, just little books about this big. Okay, story time, done. Say your prayers, into bed, not my bed, not her bed, back to bed. And there's no yelling. It's just this barrage of telling, not working very well. So Brian offers me a little bit of coaching. And honestly, I was not looking for coaching. I was looking for sympathy. This was recreational complaining on my part. But he offers me this little bit of coaching. He says, Liz, why don't you try just asking your kids questions tonight? And my first response was in Spanish, because I said, imposible. Like, that's not going to work. They're not going to go to bed because I ask them a question. Because I wasn't getting them to bed till like 9:30 at night. But I decided to take the challenge. And it changed me as a parent. It changed me as a boss. Because that night, I decided that once I walked into my house, I would not make a single statement, that everything would be a question. We got through dinner fine, playtime after dinner fine, we get to bedtime. What do? Like, what would be a good question?
What do you want to do first?
What do you want to do first? I started with, what time is it? They're like, bedtime. The 6-year-old knew. What do we do first? Who's going to be the first to get their pajamas on? Okay, who needs help brushing their teeth? Whose turn is it to pick the story? What story are we going to read? Whose turn is it to read the story? Mommy or daddy? And they picked their father. And then I said, well, what do we do after story time? And they're like, we say prayer. And I'm like, wow. And then my final question was, okay, who's ready for bed? And they're like, me. And they ran to their beds, they went to bed, they went to sleep without any adult supervision. I'm left there wondering, like, how long have they known how to do this? Like, I'd been doing it for them, to them. It turns out they knew how to get themselves ready for bed. Turns out they knew how to do a lot of things I had been doing for them. I kept it up for 3 nights, so fascinated by this change in dynamic. And it was about night 3 that I realized, gee, maybe the people who work for me on my management team don't really need me telling them what to do. What do they need from me? They need an intelligent question. Maybe you take this extreme question challenge. I don't suggest you operate permanently in this mode. It's kind of creepy. But I suggest you experiment with it once or twice and see what happens. If you're nervous about trying it with your management team or with the people who work for you, maybe you just say, I'm going to take a different role in this meeting. I'm just going to be asking a lot of questions. I really want to get the ideas from the group. Okay. Number 2 is maybe you take the chip challenge and you go into a meeting where you are prone to over-contribute. Maybe you normally would take up a lot of the airtime in the meeting. You say, I am going to go in as if I have a set of chips. These are some very faux poker chips. Each chip represents something you say or contribute. And you dispense your opinions in small but intense doses. And so you say, in this meeting, I only have 4 chips. So maybe you use 1 chip to open up the meeting, frame the issue for discussion, set the objective for the meeting. That's a chip. Maybe you use another chip to ask a big question, to get people thinking. Maybe you use a chip to share an idea of your own that hasn't already come up. Maybe you hold that back towards the end, and maybe you save a chip to close the meeting down and move it forward. And when you play a chip, you play big, but then you step back and you play small and you create room for other people to play big and to fill in that space. Instead of just hiring smart people or looking at people for their technical skills or their qualifications, maybe you look for people's native genius, the thing they do easily and freely. Now, if you want to take this chip or this challenge at a basic level, maybe you do this for a person on your team. A lot of people would pick someone who is maybe their superstar, their impact player. And you talk with them about what their natural brilliance is and how it can be used on the team. If you want to take this challenge at a bigger level, maybe you do this for your whole team. You bring your whole team together and you go person by person. Maybe spend about 10 minutes per person talking about each person's native genius, what they do easily and freely. Maybe you give it a name and you talk about how it can be used to further the work, how it can be used against your biggest challenges. Now, if you want to take this challenge at its absolute biggest and fullest, maybe you do this with the person on your team who feels like a bit of a problem. Does everyone have one? Maybe someone who thinks very differently than you. Maybe someone you don't really understand, you don't get them. Maybe someone you have a hard time working with. I took this challenge where I had a bit of a problem, and it wasn't at work, it was in my home. We've got 4 kids today, 4. 3 of them seem perfectly normal, and then there is our son Christian, who is just different. Wild, creative, always making something. We can never, like, nothing stays put in our house. Everything gets used for one of his projects. He's not only wildly creative, he's just drawn to danger, always making something. I brought a couple pictures here. This is one of his man forts, where, you know, this is where we find our camping gear, our laptop, our computers, all in one of his forts. This was like when he was 13. Problem with this fort, though, is where this thing is. Which, this is actually on a second story roof. This is about 30 feet up in the air. And this is just one example of dozens of things like this that this kid does. He's absolutely feral. And both my husband and I were trying to figure out, how do we stop this? You know, we very much saw it as a problem. Our neighbors very much saw this as a problem. He also used this as a driving range. The Menlo Park Police Department saw all of this and all of his antics as a problem, and they would pay regular visits to our home to talk to us about that. And then I decided I would apply some multiplier logic to this situation. He was 13 at the time. And instead of seeing this as a problem, I would just look for, what is he brilliant at? What is his mind built to do? What is he going to do, whether he has permission to do it or not? And I watched this young man for about a year, and I came to deeply understand his mind and his brilliance. I not only came to deeply understand it, I came to deeply appreciate it. How do you think I see this kid today? Any guesses?
Genius.
Yeah, I see him as a genius. He's like bold and brilliant. This is him on his way up to a 20K peak in the Himalayas in shorts. Just adventurous. I don't see him as a problem. I see him as a problem solver. Maybe one of the challenges you take is to look for the native genius, the natural brilliance of someone on your team who feels hard to you, maybe difficult. Instead of just encouraging people to innovate, maybe one of the most powerful things you can do is say, you know what? Over here, this part of our business, this is not ripe for innovation. This is not a free-for-all. Over here, a small mistake can be extremely costly. These are freeways. And maybe you have to manage those pretty tightly, pretty closely. Maybe you need to hold 51% of the vote on those. But over here, this part of your work, these are playgrounds. This is where people can try something, make a mistake, recover from it, learn from it. Maybe that's where you give people 51% of the vote. Maybe you make a practice of giving someone 51% of the vote. If you've got some rescuer tendencies and you see people struggling, maybe you remember to hand the pen back. This was a lesson I learned from Jay Choi. He said, Liz, when people are struggling, it's irresponsible not to help, but you've got to remember to hand the pen back. And then he described this meeting. He was the managing director of McKinsey in Seoul, Korea. There is a project team gathered in a conference room. They've been doing a transformation study for their largest, most important client, and they have a pitch to that client the very next day. So there's a big deal on the table. They've been doing this study, but now they're at this milestone. They want to get more of the business, and they're trying to put the pitch together, and nothing is coming together, and it is 2 a.m. Jay Choi is the managing director. He's in the back of the conference room, watching in, listening. He's the sponsor to this work. The project leader is up at the board. Finally, the project leader turns to him and says, Jay, do you have any ideas? And he hands Jay the pen, and Jay takes the pen, and he comes up and he starts mapping this out. He's laying out, okay, here's sort of the data, and here's kind of the theme we're seeing, and here's really the big issue, and he's laying out the value proposition. And it's all so clear to him what needs to happen. It feels kind of good to him to be saving the day, And it feels pretty good for the team. It's 2 in the morning. But as he's starting to lay this out, like the multiplier in him just signals restraint. He stops about there and he says, here are a few ideas to get you unstuck. Why don't you take these and see what you can do with them? And he hands the pen back to the project leader. He sits down and the project leader resumes and leads the conversation. He said, when people are stuck, okay, you could give them a little bit of help, but you've got to remember to hand the pen back. What does the pen represent? Ownership, power, control. When you help people who are struggling, you now own the pen. You have it. Maybe you make a practice of when you've helped someone, you help with just the smallest amount of help you can, and then give them back the pen, which might be as simple as saying, happy to help, but I really see you leading this. I'm here if you need me, but you are leading this. You still are 51% of the vote. And lastly, instead of just delegating work, offering people stretch challenges, something that makes them feel uncomfortable, something that is an awkward stretch. I want to end here with this idea that you don't have to get it right all the time to be seen as a multiplier leader and to get virtually all of people's capability. You've got to get it right more often than you get it wrong. But when you lead like a multiplier by rule, you earn the right to have some diminishing moments by exception. And what you really get is not just an environment where people can contribute at their fullest, but you get an environment where people aren't just position holders. They're what I call impact players. That when problems are messy, they don't just do their job, they do the job that's needed. When roles are unclear, they don't wait for direction, they step up, they take the lead. When obstacles drop in their path, they don't hand them off to you. They get them done, all the way done. They take the lead. When the environment is changing, they don't just stick to what they know. They adapt, they adjust, they pivot. And when workloads feel heavy, they don't add to the burden that you and the team already feel. They make work light for everyone. By being a multiplier, you get a team of difference makers and impact players. Fundamentally, what we find that the multiplier leaders do is they bring together 2 things. They create an environment of safety, physical safety, psychological safety, intellectual safety, trust, support, empathy, the things we talked about, but they add to that an element of stretch, challenge, accountability, high expectations, truthful feedback. And when these 2 forces come together, people tend to be at their best, and they tend to be able to contribute their most. I want to wrap up with this little video. This is a video that was taken here in the state of Utah, up in Park City, Utah, up on top of the 40-meter ski jump. It's a young woman. Her name is Zia Terry, lives in Jeremy Ranch. And she's got a GoPro on her helmet. And I want you to just listen to the dialogue between her and her coach. Like what her coach does that enables her to do something big and hard and scary that she's never done before.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh. Okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
You can do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have fun.
A bigger 20. Go ahead. You got this. I got it. It's fine. You'll be fine. Okay. Here. The longer you wait, you'll be more scared. Go. Yeah! Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
I think our organizations and your organization are full of people like that who want to level up, who want to do something hard. If you build the safety and add to it the stretch, you'll build confidence and capability in your team that, you know what, it's just figure 20. And the next hard thing you ask them to do, 60 seems like nothing now. But all of that comes when you decide that your greatest value as a leader is not being the problem solver. It's not having the answers. It's not being the genius on the team. It's playing the role of genius maker and igniting genius in everyone around you. Thank you, and Brixton, back to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for being here. You'll see messages from us. We actually have award code programs that will go live for you today. We want you to take this back to your team and have those discussions we talked about. How are you an accidental diminisher? What are you doing? Can you get help from your team? You'll see, again, messages from us on how to participate in that. But again, thank you, huge thank you to Liz Wiseman and Andrew for being here today. And we'll close with a two-banger on two. 1, 2. Thanks, everyone.